I'm good to go.
Okay.
I'm good to
Wait
go.
1 second. Marlene, you got it? Record. Okay, you're good then.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the sixth episode of the Summer Speaker Series, Keep It 100. My two friends and our fathers decided to do something similar to a TED Talk, where we bring in people from the community to talk about the arts, athletics, business, essential services, leadership, military, and other different aspects of life. Tonight completes our summer series. We will start up another series in the fall starting in 2 weeks. In this series, we wanted to give everyone an opportunity to rub shoulders with giants, listen to their life stories, and their journey to get to where they are now. As the audience, you will be muted, but you'll be able to ask questions in the chat about each guest that we have. If we are able, we will unmute you. So you can ask the chat a question or our chat monitors will ask them for you. Audience, if you could take a moment and in the chat, please let us know who you are, where you're from, and how you heard about our program. We would love to welcome you. This week's speaker is Mr. John Clidy. Mr. Clidy grew up in a working class family and later joined the New Jersey State Police as a trooper. During his time as a trooper, he had what the state police called a side hustle in investing in real estate. After 17 years as a state police officer, he had the courage to resign only 3 years short of a lifetime pension to follow his passion, a passion that led him to form a real estate team called the Clidy Group, whereby he has sold over 4,000 units and 500 million in sold sale volume. As an investor, Mr. Clidy has flipped over 100 homes and he currently holds over 7 million in real estate assets. Mr. Clidy is currently the regional director of Keller Williams Real Estate, in charge of a region consisting of 49 market centers in Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. In addition, Mr. Clidy heads up Keller Williams International Social Equity Task Force, tasked to ensure all KW market centers feel respected and have equal opportunities. Lastly, his journey has now led him to write a book entitled Leaving Six Figures, Dual Career to Full Career. Welcome, Mr. Clidy. The Keep It 100 team and the audience are so glad you could take the time to join us this Sunday night, and welcome to our broadcast.
Thanks, Devin.
Mr. Clidy, so can we get started by you sharing us a little about your family, please?
Awesome. Number one, great intro. I got to bring you along with me wherever I go. So hopefully your dad won't mind. Yes, thank you. I'm John Clidy. I'm privileged to have an incredible wife named Andrea, four great children, Milana, Sienna, Natalia, and John Howard. And I'm a South Jersey guy for a whole lot of years until just after COVID. I decided to leave South Jersey and drive to Boca Raton and stay here for a little while. So that's the good thing about when you do things what you want to do in life. You can kind of choose where you want to live or what do you want to do and how you want to do it. So that's a good thing about I think when you pick a career and you pick a life that by design you could somewhat create it, which is a great thing.
I see that you have like a caring and loving family. So how do they like motivate you to continue being successful in what you do?
Well, I think, as a parent, and I'm sure there's a lot of dads in here and moms and grandparents, right? I think, we have a responsibility to make sure that you guys have an incredible life. And that's part of being a parent, I think, is you take on a responsibility of making sure that you guys come out better than us, right? Mentally, physically, financially, all that stuff. And sometimes you got to teach you some lessons, and some kids are different than others. But I think at the end of it, our job is to make sure that we take parenting seriously. And I would tell you that it was always a big deal to me watching, you guys see what's going on in America, and being a mixed, my dad being black, my mom white. I think now more than ever, I think we all have a responsibility to just take parenting very seriously, from education, from every aspect of it.
Thank you. John, any questions for Mr. Clidy?
Yeah. Mr. Clidy, what was it like growing up where you did?
What was it like growing up?
Yeah. Where'd you grow up, and what was it like growing up where you grew up?
I grew up in a little town called Williamstown in Gloucester County. And you know what? We grew up, I would say early on, it was very humble where, you try to make really bad clothes look cool. When you got the sneakers and you mentally tell yourself they're Nikes, but they're not, that kind of thing. I think that was the early part of my life. And pray a lot of prayers to my dad, who's not here, but I will tell you, he did really well for himself later in life. He graduated from the 8th grade, and that was it. He was locked up in the 60s for armed robbery, for assault with a weapon, and he really did a lot of good things later in life. So to have a dad that had a felony record and really no education, to probably by the time I was 11, really life was a lot better for us. Meaning he started to make a decent amount of money where we could buy decent clothes and live that we weren't living in a little small apartment we were in years ago in the early 70s. I will say that I never really wanted for anything. So no matter if we had money or not, I never felt like we didn't have it. I think my mom did a great job of making us feel like we had everything, which is a great thing. So I would say I had a really good childhood.
Thank you.
Sebastian, any questions for Mr. Clidy?
Yes, I do. Did you play any sports growing up? And if you did, could you talk about the life lessons you may have learned from them?
Yeah, I think sports was big in my life. Sorry, this is John Howard. I played basketball, football. I played literally throughout high school. I played both sports all 4 years. And I was telling this story to a bunch of leaders, I think it was on Thursday. I was really I was a center in basketball. I was 6'2", but I played against guys that were like 6'6" and 6'7". But I was like, I always held my own, because I always was just a hard worker. And I was a decent, I'm real skinny now. I lost all this weight, got into eating pescatarian and, living a different life later in my late 40s. But I was a bigger guy, and I did really well with those big centers. And then later in life, football was more of my size played more into being a football player. So I actually went to college to Montclair State and played football. I was an outside linebacker and played 3 years, tore my ACL in my first game of my sophomore year in college, and got back in my third year, got back after, healed from that, got back, and then in practice, like four weeks in, blew out my other knee. And then that was game over for me.
Thank you for sharing.
Reggie, any questions from the audience?
No questions from the audience yet, Devin. So I'd like to ask Mr. Clidy. You just talked about breaking your leg playing football. Do you remember any challenges coming up through school as a young man that may have impacted your life? And if so, how did you overcome that challenge?
Hey, thanks, Reggie. I actually tore my ACL. If I said break my leg, I tore the ACL in both knees. And challenges, I would say that was a big challenge because I lived away from home when I tore my ACL. And I remember, now the ACL is pretty easy, right? I mean, I see people, they get up and they're on crutches, like, day one, day two. back when I did it in in 90, I think 91, when I tore the first one, literally you're on crutches and you're off your feet for a month. And my stitches are like really long, they're really big. Now it's like little small microscopic little scars and stuff. So I remember just, not having family and support. So carrying, your lunch tray in the dorms, and, trying to get food and trying to do and I couldn't go back and forth because I couldn't drive. South Jersey was about 2 hours and 20 minutes away. So I was just there. So it was a lonely, I remember that being like a lonely time. I made some good friends in college. So it allowed me to, have some families to go have some Sunday dinners with and do some things with. So it was pretty cool. But I do remember the challenge of that. And then the one thing that really stands out, I was telling you guys, we struggled. My dad was a roofer. So he, and this is a great lesson, I think, for everyone. When you're self-employed, when you get hurt, no money comes in. So he ripped his finger off. He was on a ladder and literally jumped off the ladder for whatever reason, and his finger stayed there.
Wow.
And he was out of work for almost a year. Luckily, one of his workers was smart, and they put the finger in a bag and was able to save it and put it back on. But there was no money. So I would say, I had to work a lot of jobs, and, there was this, I paid for my own college, and all, I didn't get a scholarship. It was like a little partial thing. And I wasn't a great student either. So I, be clear, I was I was definitely a challenged learner, and, test taking and things weren't easy for me. So, it was just hard work and doing whatever it takes to work a couple jobs and do my schoolwork, and also, go to practice and do all that stuff. So I remember some of those challenges, especially when my dad got hurt and, they were struggling themselves.
So just to be clear, you worked while you were in school at Montclair State to help put yourself through.
Yeah, I worked 2 jobs.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. I was bouncing at every bar that they had. I'm about 197 now. I was 250 then. I was a big guy. So
Okay.
Bouncing was an easy job for me to get.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Wilson, any questions?
John, I see you are a busy person. How you do with your kids when they have many sport activities, or not now, like I said, like school activities? How you do your time? How you split out your time to be at work and be like with your kids, because you have 4 kids? How do you do with your time?
Yeah, I would say now it's a lot different because, I'm the, I lead, I own a lot of these companies, and I write my own schedule. So it's a lot different today. But when I was a state trooper and an owner and a realtor, definitely was challenging. I would tell you, part of me writing the book, Leaving Six Figures, was the challenge of something's going to have to give, right? I was doing so many things, and, I don't know if, let me get up. But I want to use my hands. There's this book called The One Thing, and in the book is there's balls, and you throw your balls up in the air, and some balls are rubber, right? Like a job's rubber, right? You can bounce it and lose your job and get another one, and maybe friends you can bounce it and get another one, but family and marriages and children are glass. And when you bounce those balls, when they drop, they break. So you can't bounce those balls. So that's when it started for me, was I started to have to be a little bit more concerned that, maybe I'm making a lot of money doing all these different things, selling real estate, owning companies, being a trooper. But there was this component where now I'm a father, at one point of 4 children. And I had to make a decision, what's more important, having all these jobs and businesses, having this pension, or is it also being able to go to kids' games and spending time with my wife? And that was a big reason why what led me to leave my, full-time pension state police job.
Okay, thank you.
Devin, we have a question from the audience before we move to the next segment. Marlene, could you take the mute off Darlene for question, please? Go ahead. It's on again.
There we go. Hey, John, I had asked a question in the chat. I think it would be great to hear your thought on how hard was it for you to make the break from paycheck to paycheck type living, like make that bet on yourself in this world, you know, go from that, I get paid every 2 weeks to being an entrepreneur and being self-employed. So how hard was it to do that? And do you have any regrets?
Thanks, Darlene. Number one, I think it's about mindset, right? I think, the one thing I learned from the state police was, you get very regimented, right? You're used to getting up at a certain time. You're used to your shift work. You're used to that behavior. And then, and I learned because I've been a real estate agent. I was a trooper in 96-ish, and I was a realtor in 99. So I started to be able to learn a lot over the years as a realtor too. And I started to see ebbs and flows of that business too, where, you're only as good as your 90 days before in real estate, right? So if I had a great 90 days before, then I make really good money 90 days later, because real estate's like a 90-day business, right? All the work that I did 90 days ago shows up, 90 days later. So I started to learn that, maybe if I set models and systems around being able to not have ebbs and flow and to have consistency in my money, maybe that I won't have to feel like I do, like a lot of realtors do, Darlene. A lot of realtors feel ebbs and flow because they work real hard for a certain amount of time and then they slow down because they're so busy in the paperwork stuff, and they're not in the customer acquisition or the business creation phase. So for me, it was like, you know what? I need to figure out how I can be consistent of the customer acquisition and the profit phase of my life. So that way I don't have ebbs and flow of my profitability. So once I learned that, and I started to have an education around what business looks like as opposed to a practitioner. And you guys know practitioner means like my dad, right? When he gets hurt, money stops coming. And what happens with a business, if you run a business and you hire really good people and they're doing everything they need to do, usually that's a good sign, right? It means that you're making money, as opposed to having a practitioner or a self-practitioned business where that one individual is the business. So once you know that you can make money, and then, there's this thing called investing in real estate, guys, right? Wealth building, passive income. Common sense will say, I have X amount of money. Maybe I can be okay with taking a chance, or maybe I could leave. And part of my book talks about, having a solid plan to be able to leave, right? I would tell anyone today, like if you have a job and you don't love it, I wouldn't say leave it tomorrow. That would be silly. I would say, listen, what's your plan? Have you talked it over with people you trust? Do you have enough money? Do you have like 6 months in reserves if something goes wrong? All those things really make sense, as opposed to, a lot of people just leaving their job and like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do next. That's not a good way. So I think, having a plan, making sure you have the right reserves, and then having the right mindset, Darlene, I think allows you to take that leap.
Good. And any regrets?
Oh yeah, I forgot. I talk so much, I didn't even realize the answer to the question. Not even, no regrets. I started off the call before everyone got on, and I was just saying, I'm looking out and I'm looking at palm trees, and I was living in South Jersey, and me and my wife have been talking for 10 years to move to Florida, and I'm in Boca Raton, where it's just beautiful, and it was a dream of ours, and now it's like, it's almost like we smack ourselves every morning, like, we're walking barefoot all over the place. Like you don't even wear shoes here. It's like crazy, right? You're in golf carts and you're barefoot and flip flops. So, for us, that was like, that's like what we always wanted. And then I'm able to run my business from here, as opposed to having to be anywhere in the world. I can be wherever I want to be. So the regret's not even close. I would say, the only thing I regret, my mom and my brother are still there. Family members are still there, but at the end of the day, you got to live, you only get one shot at this, Darlene.
Yes, you do. YOLO, you only live once.
Only once.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the next segment, Tony, do you have any questions for Mr. Clidy?
John, were there any additional lessons, especially that stood out for you from your father that you've kind of latched onto and carried with you through the years?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I was thinking about him today, and the work ethic. I would tell you two things. He taught me what I didn't want to do in life, which was that roofing. I don't want to do hot roofing. But he also taught me how to work hard and how to treat people really good. He was a very honest man to a fault. I mean, really to a fault. And, I don't want to say he's a man you would take advantage of, but I would say he would allow you to take advantage of him because he was just such a nice guy. And I have pieces of that in me. And it's like him, I'm consciously letting people take advantage of me because I want to help them. But the one thing I've learned from him is I don't really around money. I don't let people take advantage of me. One time you borrow money, you get that burnt, you get burnt once, that's it. So I will tell you that I've learned not to loan money to anybody ever again. My whole thing is that we'll figure out another way, whether it be me really spending time mentoring, coaching you, giving you lessons that I think you can make money off of, but to actually hand money to someone, that's one thing I probably won't do in life that I learned from him because he could do it. And I watched him do it, and I'm like, Dad, you just did this guy. He never giving you money back. Don't do it. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was usually family members. And listen, I'm all about helping people, but when I know they're going to repeat that behavior, I'm not. So I don't really. I'm a very disciplined man, and I'm a very, I don't like to. I'm a nice guy, but I don't like to be played with either. So. Sure. And my dad was like that too, but he was just a really kind man and a hardworking guy. So I would say hard work and just, being a good in good integrity is what I really took away from him.
Great. Thanks for sharing, John.
Okay, so now we're going to move into your career as a New Jersey State Police trooper. So my question to you is, can you talk about why you applied to be a New Jersey State Trooper and what that application process was like?
So this is the honest part of the honest, it was a bunch of college kids. I would love to say that I was born to be I was going to be the state trooper and everything. It was a bunch of college kids that were in great shape. And we seen the flyers said, you got to be, magnificent shape and you're going to have physical fitness. And then the biggest thing that I seen was $50,000 a year. That stood out, for a salary and benefits and all that stuff. And, I was working like 3 jobs after college. I had, a bunch of different bouncing gigs. And then I worked at a auto auction at the time. So I had 3 different jobs and, you just working a lot, didn't make sense, working like that. So it just looked like a really solid job, and I will tell you that I think when I took it, 10,000 people took the test. And out of that test, I want to say maybe 350 people became troopers out of that test. I think there was 2 classes that came out of mine, maybe 3, but I think it was about 360 came out of that 10,000, that pool of 10,000. And, we had engineers in my class, attorneys. We had a professional athlete. There was legitimate guy, like, you know, everybody was the captain of their football team. Everybody was smart. You know, everyone was in good shape. Everyone was running like a 6.5 minute mile. Like, you know, like the legit guys, you know, it was just, it was, and girls. It was a very, very humbling experience to be around just a lot of great people. And then once you get there, you start saying, wow, this is like prestigious. This is the real deal. So, you know, I was really, once I got there, I was really proud to be part of it. And you put that, you know, you guys are all, and this is New Jersey, right? I speak to people all around the country sometimes, but you put that blue and gold uniform on and it just makes you feel good. You know, I remember the time I put it on and how proud you are. And you know, that was the hard thing to even leave, you know, when my mindset shifted away from it. But I will tell you that I was so proud to be part of it, and I still am. I'm still proud. I got great friends from it. But, you know, I started off not, you know, it wasn't like a lifelong dream. And as, you know, life takes over, you know, probably parts of me really not being my true whatever John Clidy wanted out of life, I started to see it. And I've seen it before that I left, you know, 17 years in. I've probably seen it like 10 years in. But the challenge of, you know, leaving such a great job and how hard it is to get into 6 months of your training and everything. It's just a hard job to leave, and your pension and everything. Like, you know, you got a pension for life. I know there's a couple troops on here, you know, that pension, that's they call it the lottery ticket, man. That's, you know, and then you add the benefits to that. You know, that's a really good, that's a hard thing to leave.
Thank you. John, any questions for Mr. Clidy?
Yeah. Mr. Clidy, could you tell us about the training that you had to go through and what lessons you learned from that?
Yeah, you talk about the training, man. We lived there all week. So we lived there from Monday through Friday, and you report at 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, no, you report at like 5 o'clock, maybe 4:45. And I live 2 hours away. So, you know, I get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to get there at Seagirt by, you know, I think I got there at maybe 4:45 around there. And yeah, I mean, probably one of the hardest things you'll ever experience. You know, it's paramilitary, and you know, a lot of my friends that were Marines, I mean, it was that challenging physically, mentally. It was a very, very challenging process to become a trooper. And you know, and they do a good job of mentally making sure that you're prepared to take that role on. I mean, those instructors, you know, some of them I know, and I talk to, maybe not a lot now, but you know, years ago I did. And they do a great job, I think, setting your mindset, because one thing I think we all know on this call, mindset's everything, right? I don't care what job you are. I don't care if it's school. You know, if you know, you guys are in school now, right? If you wake up and you don't have the mindset to have a good day, you probably won't, right? But if you wake up and you listen to some good music and you ate your breakfast, you know, you're ready to rock and roll. But if you wake up and you're tired and you're complaining and, you know, you're not ready to go. So I would say same thing there, you know, like, you know, as hard as it was, if you went there and you took advantage, you know, you think about the 10,000 people that tried to apply, and you're one of the few, and you got this incredible opportunity in front of you that all these people want, including engineers. And like I said, there was doctors and attorneys and professional athletes. And I'm like, you know, when I'm going through it, I'm like, wow, I'm really lucky. You know, I'm one of the lucky guys, you know. The only bad thing that I think, I forgot who asked me about my injuries. I had 2 ACL injuries. So I brought those suckers with me to the academy. So I was challenged about, you know, the running and stuff, because, you know, my knee would swell up a lot because I had that archaic ACL surgery back in the early 90s. So it creeped back up to me in the, you know, in the mid to late 90s. And, but I got through it. You know, I ran a lot of 5Ks before it, and I was prepared, and you know, I was able to ice my knee here and there. Sometimes I got in trouble, sometimes I didn't.
Thank you.
Sebastian, any questions for Mr. Clidy?
Yes. What would you say was the difference between those who made it versus people who didn't? And could you talk about your experience getting through and graduating?
I know it sounds simple, but mindset, right? I think it's about mindset. I think, the guys that get broke, if you think about Army, Marines, any job, right? There's even regular jobs where you let maybe coworkers or a supervisor mentally count you out, right? Or get you out of a position. And I think the state police is no different. Their job is to see if you can mentally withstand 6 months of whatever they're doing, and make sure that you can go, because just remember, now you're going out into the real world, and you guys, you watch TV, you see what's going on now. This is the real world. And I worked in Camden City, I worked in Irvington, I worked in Newark. I was one of the only minority. I was the only, me and another guy was the only minority in the ABC unit. So any undercover job in the inner city, we got them. I will tell you that, you got to be prepared for anything. What they say is it could be the last time you go home, right? When you go to work, our goal is always to come home. So I would say the mindset is the biggest piece in any job, especially in a police job. You got to have the right mindset every day. You got to be prepared. And I also talk about it in the book, but I talk about complacency. And I said that, one thing about police officers, if you guys know, when you pull up to a car at night, they always tell you to make sure you watch their hands on the steering wheel, right? Because when you don't see a hand, that hand could be where, right? Could be under the seat, could be over here, could be wherever. And that means they could have something in their hands. So, and they, not all the time, but they sometimes allude or say that some people that get killed on duty is because of being complacent, going up to that car, or being complacent of how you handle the situation. And I talk about that in business too, right? Being complacent with your business could lead to not being profitable, and your business can close too. So same thing, I would say, complacency and mindset, because also in the academy, or going through that process, if you get complacent, you also could get hurt and not even get through, because guys that got hurt didn't make it too. It's not that kind of place where you get hurt and everything's good. You get hurt, you're done. And some of these people were police officers that resigned to come to be a trooper, and then they resigned and they can't go back to their, that 4 or 5 year police officer job they had. And now they got to start, from scratch too. So I do recall some of those things.
Thank you.
Reggie, any questions from the audience?
No new questions from the audience just yet, but I would like to know, by the way, John, I'm looking forward to reading your book. Tony shared a few things with us. One thing I'm interested in knowing about, and I think the audience would be interested as well, is when you talk about the 18th month period following your graduation. Could you tell us what that was like and what lessons you learned from it? And also how you got that nickname Salty.
Yeah, so in the state police, they the first 18 months is scripted for you, right? You go to 3 stations for 6 months, usually real far away from your home, making sure you drive real far. I remember mine. I was in Woodbine, Red Line, which is like Southampton area and all that, and then I was in Bridgeton. In Bridgeton, I think I told you guys I was 250, right? I was a big guy, and I was, I was a big guy. I would say I was a bodybuilder. I ate really good, and I really cared about what I ate, and I was protein shakes and the whole thing. Bench pressing, 400 and all that stuff. I was that guy, and you come in, you already got that, that high testosterone job, and then you're big, and all that stuff, and then you go in there with a bunch of other guys just like you, but they got seniority, right? So I come in and I'm like, I'm not washing dishes and doing cleaning cars and all that stuff. and when I did it, I did it very, to the least amount of anything I could do, put it that way, and that's not my behavior, but I was just so like, I don't want to wash people's dishes from the shift before, whatever it was. And I had this chip on my shoulder for whatever reason. And there was a time where the guys let me know, right? They salt you, right? You're salty. So they put salt in my locker, and I got real like indignant and aggressive about it, and started calling people out at the Bridgeton barracks. And one of the supervisors, real good guy, comes up to me and he said, "Listen, these guys are going to keep on you if you keep playing that game. Just go clean it up, and just let's just move on. And you got to play the game a little bit. Everyone else did. You got to play it." And honestly, I as much as I didn't want to do it, I did it. I cleaned up a little bit, not a lot, and I played the game a lot better than I did then, and things were a whole lot better. But I definitely went in there with a little bit of a chip.
Rookie hazy.
Yep.
Thanks.
Wilson, any questions?
Yes, John, what will be your advice for young people who have the dream to be a state police?
And it's crazy, because obviously I left the job, right? So I have so many lessons to folks. Number one, if you really want to do it, my brother's as a sergeant today, and 20 some years, and he loves it, right? And I have a lot of friends that love it. And I would tell you that, if it's something you really want to do, you should do it, right? It's a great job. It's great benefits. But I will say too, you also got to be really careful now, right? I mean, I just think, I got to be honest, I have children, right? And, would I want them to be a state trooper today? I don't know. I really don't know. I would never tell them no, because it was a great job and a great learning lesson. I would just say that you really, no matter what you do in life, right? You have to want to do it. But I would say with police, law enforcement, you should really mentally, right here, want to do it. Like really be prepared to want to do it. And if that's the case, then I support that wholeheartedly. It's a great job. You got, great benefits. And listen, you also could do, a side hustle. Like I said, I made a whole lot of money as a dual career state trooper. I had a really good situation. It just, my mind was no longer settled into that job anymore. And I got busy, and I had some really, really great success around real estate. So I just, I don't know if everyone will have that situation, but for me, my passion started to go more towards the real estate than it did the state police. But listen, my brother loves it. And I will tell you that a lot of people that are still in love it. And I know there's a colonel on here, I'm sure he loved it. And there's it's a great career for a lot of people that, be able to provide for their children. And I got great relationships and great skills, right? I mean, where do you get the kind of training and discipline that we get as a New Jersey state trooper? So no doubt it's a great job.
Okay, thank you.
Tony, any questions for Mr. Clidy?
Yes, John, the one question I have for you is that I've heard from like a Pennsylvania transit police guy that I know, and he said, as we see the kind of things that are happening around the country, one of the things he said, knowing my brother was in the state police, he said, if every police force or township or police department would interview like the New Jersey State Police, we'd have a lot less problems than we have now. So would you attest to that, given what you went through in the interview process?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, the state, getting through the academy, which I thought was really hard. You have a psychological assessment. You take the tests. You have a physical that's really, really in depth. I mean, I had to give all my MRIs for my knee surgeries when I was a college football player. I showed that I ran in like marathons. You know, it's a pretty stringent test to get there. And mentally and physically, I mean, there's so, yeah, I mean, I know what my brother did to get on, and, you know, I try to make sure I don't say anything bad, but I definitely know that what we went through is not what he went through. I guess I could just put it that simple. So I would definitely concur that it's a little bit different to become a New Jersey State Trooper than it is a lot of municipalities or some other law enforcement jobs.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so now we're going to move on into your dual career with real estate. So can you talk about like how did you get started into real estate?
Yeah, I had a realtor that sold me a house and didn't tell me a lot about the house. And I got my license just for more information about real estate. And then my broker, I joined this little small brokerage. He was flipping a lot of houses and actually buying a lot of houses, not flipping them. And I was like, what are you doing? He was like, yeah, I own like 30 homes. And I seen the passive income stream. So I started to really like that. And I didn't have any money. So I asked my dad if I could borrow some money. And I took $2,500 from him, $2,500 from me, and drained my bank account and borrowed a little small townhome in Sicklerville, 5 Lawrence Court, that I'll never forget. And that turned into a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio that I had probably about 5 years later. So that kind of started that journey. And probably in the 4th or 5th year, I had all these state troopers asking me, what the heck are you doing? So now I started growing my real estate sales business, because now I started to have, you know, a lot of, you know, nice cars. I was single, and people were wondering what you were doing. And if you dads out there remember in the early 2000s, there was a real estate boom. You put a sign on the lawn and it sold. So it was really good timing for me. And I told this story on a national call on Wednesday. And believe it or not, in Camden, there was only 2 realtors. It was me and another guy. And no one wanted to sell real estate in Camden because they didn't want to go there. So I had all these agents giving me listings in Camden. So I had hundreds of listings in Camden, New Jersey. So now all of a sudden I become like a superstar agent overnight, because I just had so many listings, and they didn't even want referral fees. They were just giving me listings because Camden was the most dangerous city in America. So before you know it, I had, you know, 100 and some listings, and I was, you know, 4 or 5 years later, I was the #1 agent in New Jersey for Century 21.
Thank you. John, any questions for Mr. Clidy?
Yeah. Did you ever envision this side hustle to become a $1 million career?
I think I did. I think as I started to learn what my independent broker was doing and seeing all the houses he had, I started to see that real estate, you can make some money. And I think that's what led to my transition of mind. And I don't know if you guys read this, and I don't know if this is a good thing for kids to hear or not, but I think it's good to know of really what got my mindset like thinking like, wow, this is like crazy. But I made $100,000 in one day. And the way I did it, it's not who I am, but it led to me probably closer to leaving the state police. But I had a $100,000 day. I think I had like 7, probably 8 or 9 sales, and then I flipped a house on one day, and I think it was like 100 and some thousand. And I had all the checks in my pocket because I worked actually it was a 2 to 12, but I went in late because I had settlements that day. And we dressed like this, you know, I was in Atlantic City casino unit. So we dressed kind of like we're going out, but you know, we have to fit in the casinos. So I had all those settlements, and I sold one of my flips. So I had the checks in my pocket because I never went home. And I was like, I don't know, your dads probably do, but when you're younger, I don't know, I grew up, humble. So whenever I get money, I like to have a knot. It just makes me feel like I'm like cool. So I had my knot and I had my checks, and I just felt good to have them in my pocket, and I had a gun, so I was good. I wasn't worried about anybody taking anything. So I went to work like that, and we had like a transfer party for a guy, like not a party, but they had like a little lunch or dinner for him. So when I went into the shift, I went right to like a little, I think it was the Baltimore Bar and Grill. We a bunch of shifts got together, the day shifts, our shift, and I think the midnights came in early, and we kind of had like a little thing. And everyone made fun of me. They were like, "You selling real estate? That's BS, man. That real estate stuff, you don't make money. You don't do this." And I heard it all the time. People like messing with me about real estate and stop doing it. And I was just like, I'm tired of hearing this stuff. And I had this little guy over here saying, "Tell him about the checks. Tell him about the checks." And this guy saying, "Don't tell him about the checks." And this guy won. I'm like, well, real estate don't do good. It looks pretty good here. And I like had the checks in my hand, and they start passing them around. And that was the day that, number one, that I think changed how they perceive me. And that was a bad day for me because that's not who I am. But it led to me mentally knowing that maybe I don't fit in anymore, because what I do and I'm passionate about, I get made fun of. And that's what kind of led to me kind of thinking like I'm in the wrong place where, I have a great day and I can't even tell people about it. I got to be ashamed of it.
Thank you. Wow.
Sebastian, any questions for Mr. Clidy?
Yes. If I could ask a question about your book. So in your book, you speak about an 18-month period following your graduation. It's about the state police officer. I thought this was a good question. What was that 18-month period like, and what lessons did you learn from it, and how did you get the nickname Salty?
I think I answered that one.
You did?
Yeah.
I apologize about that.
That's all right.
I don't have any for now. I'll come back with one.
Reggie, any questions for Mr. Clidy?
Yes. So John, coming up playing sports, you were a part of a team. State Troopers here in New Jersey, you were part of a team. You're part of a team now, but you're leading that team. Could you talk about that transition from being a part of the team to the leader of the team?
Yeah, man. That you hit my passion zone, Reggie. Leadership is probably why I'm where I am today. I fell in love with a guy named John Maxwell, and his writings. And I also I'm a big fan of Gary Keller. I would say probably one of the only guys that I truly I think I ever called a mentor, that I really listened to him and his words and his advice. So I would say I've learned how much hiring talent matters, and how much that if you take care of everyone, if you take care of the others around you, you take care of yourself, right? So if I can make your world incredible, guess what? My world's incredible. So if you pour into people and you pour into them and you give them everything you got, man, the jewels come back to you. And you never can worry about them leaving you either. I've learned that too. Like I have one of the most successful guys in Keller Williams right now is a guy by the name of Matt Teeter, who worked for me for 5 years. And now he's like he was 26 at the time, and he was an attorney that didn't like to be an attorney, and worked for me as a team leader in my market center. And now he's in Austin, Texas, and he's probably like third in command of all of Matt.
Is he lagging for you guys?
Look like John froze.
Yep.
Let me send him a message so he knows. John, you there?
John, you're back.
Yeah.
He froze. No. He started talking about your colleague, Max Carter.
Matt Teeter. Yeah, Matt Teeter. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. There's a bad storm here in Florida, but Southern Florida. Yeah, I was saying that, Matt, you know, for me, watching guys that were under my leadership now go and lead organizations themselves was just the mecca for me to see that happen. And I think that mindset allowed me to be really successful because I started really being passionate about leading others and seeing them shine. And in turn, I shine. You know, I shine financially, I shine mentally. And then it's a good story to tell if you're going to hire other people and you say, listen, you work for me, you know, this is what happens. You know, it's almost like football coaches, right? You have football coaches that, you know, college coach, you work for, you know, you name it. What's the guy in Alabama? Saban. You work for Saban, you're going to the NFL, right? You know, and most of his guys go in the first round. So, you know what happens when you go to Alabama and you start, you're probably going to be a first round draft pick. So that's how I feel, you know, for me is I want people to know they come work for me. There's a thing called value, validity, thrive, right? You know, if you have value, you get validity and then you thrive. So I really believe in that mantra. So for me, you know, if I provide value and now I have validity, then I could thrive, and then people under my organization thrives as well.
That's good stuff. So when you sit down with someone, prospective team member, is there any particular characteristic you're looking for when you sit down with someone?
Yeah, there's a book called The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. And he says there's 3 things that someone always should have when you hire them. They need to be hungry, they need to be humble, and they need to be smart. And if they have, and when I say smart, I don't mean book smart, because I surely wasn't book smart. I mean street smart, meaning that they can see and understand people. And, you know, I could look at you, Reggie, and if you don't like me, I can tell you don't like me, right? By your behavior and how you treat me and how you talk. I wouldn't be shocked that you didn't like me. But, you know, some people are blind to that, right? You know, someone's telling you, I don't like you and I don't want to work for you, and you don't see it, right? So when I say smart, I don't mean that you can read, you know, 100 pages in two minutes. I mean that you pick up on real nuances and concepts really fast, you know, so I would say street smart. So when I see those 3 characteristics, it makes me think, you know what, I need to look more into this person. And then I think, Tony, you guys use it or you talk about, but career visioning, the state police, not state police, I'm getting confused now, dual career. Keller Williams has the career visioning process. And if you go in my office in New Jersey, I have all around my offices, I have big Post-it notes because I fell in love with the motivation story. And the motivation story asks a question. It says, you know, I go to, who I got here? What's your son's name, Reggie? Devin?
Devin.
I'll go to Devin and I'll say, Devin, in 5 years, if everything went awesome, what are you doing as a job, right? And then I'll say, also, if, you know, and then I take the job and then I go to money, right? What the 5 years, what's your money situation looks like? And then I talk about family, because that's what usually people say, family, charities, you know, I heard all kinds of community. And then I start to map out what the next 5 years looks like in your life. And being able to do that at a high level really helps me too, because now I get a sense of really what someone wants instead of just trying to give them what I want to give them. I give them exactly what they want. Or I also find out if they don't see themselves in alignment with me. You know, the reason that Matt and I separated is when I asked Matt 5 years from now, this was 5 years after he worked for me. I said, if everything went awesome, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to be the president of MAPS Coaching. And that wasn't in alignment with what I do, right? I'm more in ownership of offices, title companies, in the real estate business. He really wanted to be in the coaching arm. So I made sure as his mentor and his coach and his leader that I helped him get there. But it wasn't in alignment to my path, if that makes sense.
Totally. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that book too. The Ideal Team Player. I'm going to look it up.
That's a great book. Yeah.
Wilson, any questions for Mr. Clidy?
Yes, John, you mentioned like you have to take care of the others, you take care of yourself. So how do you define your leadership with your workers or with your group?
Great, man. My sales team, everyone has been with me for years. So I have a lot of continuity in that team. My office that I own the majority shares in Washington Township, that staff has been with me for years. And I'm with I'm the regional director of Keller Williams, and I've been there 7 years, and we have the same staff for 7 years. I'm actually more the junior. There's some people that have been there longer than me. So usually when people get in business with me or vice versa, we work for, we work for a while. I'm not a hopper, and, I really vet whatever I get into too. I don't take my time lightly. I don't have a lot of time. So when I engage in something, I make sure it's something that makes sense for me, for my family, and for my time. And, you got to think about this too. I would say the thing that really helped me is learning to say no is really what allowed me to, I think, when you think about being rich or wealthy, I would say one of the things that helped me start to have a lot more money than I had before was that I learned how to say no. Because sometimes we take on things because it just sounds good, or buy something that sounds, it's like, it's the ideal thing. And I really didn't slow down to see how it fit in the puzzle 5 years from now. And that's the one thing I would say about Gary Keller. That man thinks 15 years ahead. Like, I'm like, he's talking to me and I'm like, what are you talking about? And in my mind, I wouldn't say that to him personally. But then when you see it play out, just that way life plays out, like this technology boom, he's seen it 6 years ago when real estate turned into this tech thing. He was telling us on stage years ago of what no one's seen. I'm talking smart owner of Remax and Berkshire had these really smart people. No one's seen it. And he was talking about it. So now for me, I'm the same way. When I start to think about my life, I can't just think next week or next month. I got to think, how would that play out if I do this, and what's it look like there? That's where you start to really, it's almost like the Matrix. I know you young kids, maybe, I don't know if you know or not, but the Matrix, everything slows down, right? And I think for me now, it started to slow down, which is really cool. When things slow down and I'm like, oh, I see now. I get this, So I would say that's been the thing for me now. Saying no and really slowing down and really looking more into my business instead of being looking on it instead of being in it.
It's great. Sometimes we need to say no. Yeah. Thank you.
Tony, any questions for Mr. Clidy?
Yeah, John, you've spoken obviously tonight about leadership. You've spoken about the kind of people you like to hire. And what about from the top down to you? Like, what are those people in your life that speak into your life, and why is that so important?
Yeah, I mean, coaching and mentorship is so important. Even I don't care whoever the youngest person is on this call. I think Michael Jordan had a coach, Tiger Woods had a coach, LeBron has a coach, right? The biggest CEOs in America have coaches. So coaches and mentors exist for a reason, right? And you usually see very smart people have them, because we sometimes get so focused in that we don't sometimes look around, right? And your coaches kind of keep you focused on whatever your one thing is, right? What's the one thing such that if you do that, everything else is unnecessary, right? So you think about that and you just stay kind of in alignment to that. I was looking at a quote from Gary Keller, and it was a couple of great quotes. The one thing he said to us about the pandemic was, he said, John, either something's happening to you or happening for you, right? And, if you really think about that, some people are sitting at home really mentally shot, right? They can't get their stuff off the couch. They can't get their self in alignment to whatever's going on in this world. And listen, we have social unrest. We have pandemic. We have just a lot of stuff going on in this world. And it's so simple are easy to get caught up and just sit in there and watch the news and just, get flown away in that. And, for us, our mentors mentally got to keep, that's what part of having the right people in your life, right? You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You guys, right, have this, your group, right? Your dads and sons. You guys, and I'm not saying this is true, or maybe it's close, but usually your average, your wealth is probably somewhat in alignment, and your values are somewhat in alignment. So, that's just the way it goes. So, you got to surround yourself with people that are like-minded. If you want your kids to be around good kids, then you better be around good parents, right? You can't be around bad parents and think that they're going to have good examples for your kids. And business is no different. Surround yourself with good business people too, because if you surround yourself with unintegrity, bad business people, not financial savvy, then you're going to maybe pick up some of those behaviors or partner with them when you really shouldn't, right? So it's really smart to surround yourself with really good people.
Thanks, John. It's important. It's very helpful. I mean, just one follow-up question, because we're all really out of time, but I feel like it's so important because I think your book is so much about it. And, the whole idea of finding what your why is, what your passion is. On the call today, we have people in different situations in life. We have young people who are considering, do I go to college, or if I go to college or I go to training school, what do I major in? Like, how would you advise those on the call? Like, how do you get to that why and to that passion like you did? What were the key lessons you learned to get to that place?
Well, the one thing I'll say that I was really foolish. I never really read books, and the power of books, man, they're powerful, right? And I will tell you, and this is my really my honest moment to the young folks out there, is I probably didn't get into reading until I was in my 40s. I'm almost 50. So it took me a long time to even get into it. But when I did, man, I was like, oh my God, this is great. I can learn. I'm a introvert. I'm an extrovert because of my world and my businesses, but I'm more of an introvert where I don't really like to talk to a lot of people. It drains me, right? But I'm able to take from books. I'm able to take without really having to talk to people, right? And I could take the knowledge from this, and I can watch podcasts, and it allows me to really learn without really a lot of interaction. I know it sounds crazy, but you got to know your strengths and weaknesses in order to be successful. So I would tell you that, reading books, and don't get caught up in business books either. I did when I started to get in this book thing. I'm like, oh my God, I got to read books. And I got burnt out from business books. I'm like reading every John Maxwell and Kiyosaki book. And I'm like, I'm bored. So then I started, picking up like the Tony Dungy book and a John Wooden book and a Nick Saban book, and things that I really like to do, besides business. And then I learned, it's okay to be able to mix and match books. And it's okay if you don't read a book, right? Like I've learned now from my readers, like, I got like 7 books that I read, like, 5 chapters here, 10 here, 30 here, and it's okay. Like it's your time. It's what you want to do. Unless you're in a book club where you're committed to reading a book and actually, journaling and coming back with feedback, it's your time to do it. So I would say reading books and listening to podcasts over the last several years have really helped me. Definitely, it's free coaching, in my opinion. I know you got to pay for the book or the podcast, you don't, but it's free coaching that we don't take enough advantage of. So if the younger, to me, telling my younger self, read more, really read. And all it is 15 minutes a day. That's all even when I'm busy now, I got out in a funk like everybody else because of COVID, and I'm on Zoom every second. I stopped reading for about 4 months. And the last couple of weeks, I just said, you know what, I'm going to get back to it. And I just said, I'm reading 15 minutes a day. And it led to me reading more than 15 minutes a day, but my mind said 15 minutes a day, which made it sound simple. And then I started getting back into my old habits. And reading like 30 to an hour here and there in between early mornings and late nights or on my drives. So read and podcast, take advantage of that now. There's so many great material out there now. Take advantage of it.
Great, thanks. My dad used to say that. He was on the call, work out for 15 minutes, or he used to say 5 minutes. But you would never just do 5 minutes.
Yeah, you read for 5 minutes, and you're going to read for 15 because you're going to you pick something you like, so you're going to read it more, right?
That's right. Well, great.
Okay, so
Thanks, John. So I'll let Devin close this out tonight.
Before we close it out, does anybody have any additional questions for Mr. Clidy?
I actually have one real quick. So out of your real estate experience so far, what is you've realized the thing that's made you the most happy out of real estate? Could it be like maybe the satisfaction of like finding people their home, or what would it be?
That's a good question there, Seb. Wow, that's a really good one. You got me really thinking there. I'm going to say I really like leadership part of my role. So I would say the regional director role has been the most challenging for me because I lead owners. So there's 50 offices in the greater PA region that's made up of 9,300 people. And I lead the leaders. So I'm the guy that has to coach and mentor them and keep them profitable and keep them, like, if they don't get productive, then I need to get out of business with them, or I got to coach them out of business, and I got to hire new ones to fill in those spots. So, and most of them are millionaires. So, to me, I'm leading and coaching millionaires, which is a hard thing, right? And every week, like tomorrow morning, I have a call at 10:30 every morning on Mondays. And, I have to lead all these people, and I have to have content to make them stay engaged, every Monday for now almost 7 years. So that years ago, that was very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. And now, not so much because I've done it so much, but I would still say that job has allowed me to be uncomfortable the most because, that's the one that allows me to be around Gary Keller, at least once a week. And some of these other great national leaders that I'm around, and some of the most, there's guys that are worth $300 or $400 million in my world that I'm, and some billionaires too, actually, in the Philadelphia market. So, and to be able to be around these folks and some of you lead, has just been humble and been uncomfortable as well. So I would say that role has really challenged me, but yet has made me really intrigued by it.
That's cool. Thank you.
I think there's one more in the chat, but I don't see it. Can somebody see it? Reggie, you see another question left on the chat?
I see one that wasn't asked from Rogerio. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. Rogerio?
Yes,
What
Rogerio.
was the breaking point for you that made you decide to leave your career in order to pursue something else? And why real estate and not something else? What made you completely change your career? You might have answered this a bit earlier, but that's the one other question.
Well, what I didn't answer, the breaking point, I would say was, I was in Atlantic City, and there was we have a defiant trespassers that go in Atlantic City, the casinos, if you guys know that. And one guy had hepatitis and AIDS. And I had him in a cell one night. And this is, 3 a.m. And it's the same guy that we all know in the casino, like all the troopers knew him. And he's usually good. But the one night I had him, he's spitting. And obviously I had a young daughter at the time. And I'm like, this is crazy, and I was doing pretty good with real estate at the time. And, I had good money. I had investment properties. And that night after he was spitting, and I actually had to go to the doctors and get tested because he spit all over. And I had to, make sure I didn't get anything and infected. And I was just like thinking to myself, why am I doing this? It was 3 a.m. I'm tired. I just had an incredible real estate, week and month and year. And I'm doing this. And that was the first time where I was like, do I want to do this anymore? Like that was and I think it was 2000. I left in 2014. I think that was in 2008. So it took me some time, but that was a point where I really started to shift my mind. So I think a piece of me left the state police that day, and I didn't know it. And little by little, every little thing started to tip away at me. Any little thing happened, I'm like, I'm out, that kind of thing. And then why nothing else? Real estate was just, it fell in alignment to who I was. I was really good at it. And I was talking to Darlene earlier, what job can you coach? You can wealth build. You can have passive income. You can own title companies, mortgage companies, real estate companies. You can lead leaders, and you could all do it from your computer. Most of my world now is sitting right in front of this whole week. I will sit here and run my multi-million-dollar business in Boca Raton. You tell me how many jobs you can do that, without a college education. You let me see that, I would be interested. So to me, it was just, for me, it was a perfect choice.
John, obviously you do your job well. Have you ever coached or prior to real estate been any leadership role where you were leading people?
No, I coached my brother and my kids in sports, like I'm sure a lot of you guys do, and flag football and soccer and all that. But no, I never did any coaching prior. I just, I hired people to my sales team because I had to, because I was minus 40 hours a week because I was a state trooper and a pretty successful, I was doing $30 million in real estate at the same time. So I had to have people doing things while I was, when I was at the state police. So I hired people, and I guess I would say I coached them, but I wasn't a good coach then. I was just trying to fill a gap. I wasn't a good coach. I would say now I'm a pretty decent coach because I understand what's important in life. And at the end of the day, we started off with this, but I'm a big, God, family. I'm going to pause, then business, right? Like in that order. So, and that's where, if you stay in alignment to that, then you won't have that glass ball fall, but if you don't stay in alignment to that and you put business first, you could have a problem.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So, Mr. Clidy, we want to thank you again and the audience for joining us tonight on the last night of our Keep It 100 Summer Speaker Series. We hope everyone could join us in 2 weeks when we start our fall series. Hope everyone has a good night. And Mr. Clidy, if you could please stay on the call for some closing moments with the team. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, John, just give us a second. We're just putting people in the waiting room just so we can circle back. In just a minute.
John, that
Great.
was a great interview. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You kids did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Well, John, thanks. What's that?
Anything else I can do for you guys?
Guys, we good? Any further questions?
No,
Mr.
we're
Clay?
good. I think we kept you long, and I'll just say we've had a lot of people on. Everyone on tonight's call must have been really engaged because I think we only had one or two drop off, and we stayed on probably, I guess, an extra 20 minutes tonight. So thank you so much.
Awesome. You ever need anything, let me know, guys. Good luck to everything you guys do.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
It's a great interview. That's a good get, Tony. I
job.
took a lot away from it.
All right, I unfortunately have to go.
Sebastian, I know you're 10 minutes late for wherever you got to go. See you later.